Hey, this is Ihab. I'm going to demonstrate in this video how to prepare an object to print out using the software Preform to print out on the SLA printers. So to begin with, I'm going to go to File and then Open. I'm going to import this file. All files must be in the STL format. If I hit F, it's going to frame the object in the interface. We have these couple of tools here that we can use. If I select on the object, I can begin with the interface. I can begin with these. So this is the perspective camera. This is from the sides. This is from top and bottom. And then if I want to go to the perspective, I can rotate around the perspective using the right mouse button, middle mouse button to pan, and then left mouse button to select. The first button here is going to show me the dimension of the object. If I want to scale it up maybe precisely 2 times, I can type in 2. I can also manually rotate, move, and scale. The next button here is what is usually used for getting the object scaffolding arrangement. So if I were to click on this button here, it's going to automatically arrange the support system for the object. I'm going to select on it and then hit F. So that's going to frame the object in, so it would be easier for me to analyze what I have with the scaffolding system here. So again, that's going to be the magic wand button. However, the problem is that if I were to use the magic what is called one-click print, it's going to arrange the scaffolding in a way that might be convenient for the printer to print out, and it might be the ideal way, but in many cases, if you are printing out a delicate object, then the problem would be that some of the scaffolding, as you can see here, a line of points, support points, are just going to make the cleaning of the object problematic. Most importantly, you would also end up with investing a lot more material than you should or more than you need to print out the object. And that would be, from one end, it's going to be taking more time. From the other end is going to also cost the material. Cost for more materials and more money eventually. If I go to the orientation here, we have multiple options. I can have the object oriented toward different surfaces on the object, but the most interesting part about this feature is that we can select the base. If you click on the select base, and then I would zoom in here, if I want this to be my base, I want to have the face with the right normal, and click with the left mouse button, it's going to create the arrangement or the orientation of my object depending on that surface. So if I hit here, that's going to make it this way, which might be also interesting. So here is a good example of a bad orientation per se. If I were to go to the layers and start from the ground up, sometimes if you want to check out the laser lines, you can deselect the object looking away from it so you can see things in blue on black. So if I were to go up now, you can see that this thing comes out of nowhere. And the problem is that it would either require more support or it would just not print in a way that it would be efficient. So instead of giving it the right orientation for supporting itself, in this case it would definitely need some support or maybe extra support than the usual way. The other thing here is that the example that I mentioned before, excuse me. If I were to go back a couple of layers, I can see this thing starting from scratch. And in the previous orientation that I had, was supporting itself without any issues, and it would be just printing out really smoothly. All right, so here's the object with better orientation, and I'm going to go through the layers quickly. We can see the buildup. I'm just gonna hide this. We can see the buildup going smoothly. In terms of this one, I would probably change the orientation. So I would go here and change. One of the things that I don't like about this software is that things are a little bit too snappy. So for the orientation, I have to click and sort of push slowly in the beginning, where, I suppose to using the 3D software, which is, things are much smoother. So this is the problem that I have right now, and I want to have a continuous build-up. So in this case, I would orient the object in this way. And even if when I orient it, even if it sinks below the ground, the software will just automatically push it up, so it would be touching the ground. Okay, I still have some more. So now it's solving that issue by this little build-up here, and that would be enough. I don't have to push it that much, but that would definitely be much better than coming out of the blue. And you can see the smooth transitions here all the way up. I have a little thing here issue. I can change the orientation for it, but it's a minor thing because it just needs a little bit of orientation. So I'm going to do that, but before I go to that point, I can see here that the overall progress here is looking good. And if I were just to kind of snap it at the end here on the right side, it would just preview the full object. So this is the final orientation for my object. And if I were to go to the layers from the beginning of it, you can see that the buildup is smooth, and the transition keeps building up gradually. Like you can see, like this spot here is good because they meet almost halfway. This is slightly problematic, but overall it's looking great, except for one point, which is here, and this can easily be solved by adding a support point. Now, this looks great, but actually the best solution, or the best way to print out this object, since I have these two handles identical and they are really hard surface that I can just stick them on the object, I would extract these two objects, these two pipes, and then I would print them separately. So I would end up with only the body of the handle, which apparently can be printed out really smoothly without any issues. And the only issue that I have, or challenge here that I have, is coming from the pipe. Even though it's completely easy to fix it and just by adding a support, but for getting a lot less work out with the support and everything, and also probably better resolution, I am just going to extract these handles and then print them separately and find out what is the best orientation for them, just to kind of print them in a way that I can get the best resolution. So that's going to be separately printed out than this object. Now I'm going to move on to this object. So clear models, I don't want them to be merged, and don't save. So this is an object that I change the scaffolding points manually. So if I were to go and click on the magic wand, I would end up with this result. This would be 48 milliliter of materials, of resin. That is so much material. Of course, it's, if it's unavoidable, it's unavoidable. But the question would be, can I reduce this amount so I would pay less time, pay less money, and work less on cleaning the scaffolding afterward, because that's going to be the most painful part, especially in this object, because it's going to be a nightmare to clean it from the inside and even the outside. So can I make this support better, more efficient, easier to clean, and cheaper? Let's figure it out. So this is the last object that you would like to print. It's really one of the worst scenarios to have for a 3D print. It's a lot of material, a lot of time to spend on the printing, because that's a lot of processing, especially if you're printing on the highest resolution on the printer. And also it is very painful to clean, and in this example, going inside is not really that much of an option, and you might end up losing a lot of the quality of the object as you potentially ruin the object as you're trying to clean and cut, and it might be impossible just to go inside and be able to kind of clean up all of these and clip them out. So how do we get a more efficient, cheaper, and faster print? Hit clear. So what we're going to do right now is to manually put the points that we want, and it's actually it's fun, and it's kind of an enjoyable process. In the meantime, you can specifically put the support in the way that you know that it's going to be easy for you to clean, or at least the closest you can manage. One thing to keep in mind, that whatever scenario you end up with, kind of rotation or whatever it is that you find to be the ideal positioning of the object or orientation, you don't want to go back and click on the magic wand. The magic wand will just set everything automatically. So whatever adjustment you make here, you need to go and click on Generate Selected. That's going to be the button to apply those support lines in the way that you made those adjustments. So I'm going to begin with the object in a way that I find it to be convenient for the rotation. And again, the same thing that I mentioned about the layers. I would go up and see, and kind of in this object, it would be really nice to print this object because it supports itself. It has the eggshell material or structure that would help me in getting something that, with the least amount of support, because it's going to support itself. It's all as one cohesive piece, and I can get away with a lot of challenges this way without being at risk of losing some of the details or needing to have so much support points. So I set up the same orientation that I had, and I put the slope multiplier to the minimum, and base thickness to 2 millimeters. I can drop that to 1 millimeter, so I would have the purpose of this is just to make the base thinner. So this is 2 millimeters. I can put it to 1 millimeter, but in this object I might need maybe something thick that would hold the weight. Of course, technically speaking, it's not going to be holding it as carrying the weight. It is going to actually hold the weight, because this is where the object is going to be carried from, and it's going to be almost like dipping it. So it's going to be the orientation of the object is going to be, this is going to be pointing down, and this is going to be the head of the printer holding this and orienting it in this direction, basically, if it was with that orientation. So I'm just going to undo so I wouldn't have to regenerate the support. So and this is also, you can reduce the amount of the height, the distance between the objects and the support, the base, and the object itself. But I'm not gonna do that because that would require regenerating again, and that would take a while. So what I'm gonna do now is clicking clear, and I wanna go next, or maybe let me undo first and then go to edit. When I go to the edit mode, it's gonna show me all of these points that the computer have generated in blue. You can see all of the support points that I have. If you zoom in, this is the kind of the fun part, and you can see here like sort of the object is entirely black, but when it comes to certain points it's kind of reddish here in this area, and that means that this might be slightly weak and it might not hold itself that much, but since it's a computer it would just generate the data based off of distribution of the faces. But for me, I can read this object and I can know for sure that this object is going to be able to hold itself. So now the next step is showing you how to work on these points and get less point and less material to spend and less time to print out the object. So I am going to delete some of these points so we would be able to see the weak points and how we can read the red color or coloration on the object. So if you put the mouse, if you hover it on top of an existing point, it turns orange or reddish. If I click, that's going to delete it, and you can see there's a loading bar here that would show that it's processing this information or this update that we have made. One tip that would really help, it's kind of problematic to see the colors between the black and the blue. So one thing that would really help is that if I know that I want to just eliminate all of these points, I can just drag a selection using the left mouse button, and soon you will see this area turn into a reddish area because I'm losing a lot of points there, but it's still holding on really nicely here. And it doesn't have to be completely black because this can still hold the weight. So what I'm going to do now is to take out all the points, or maybe all the points that I think I would like to readjust from scratch. You can see here there's a lot of points, and that's gonna end up, in many cases, you know, you might end up with an object that would cost more material on the support rather than the object itself, and you don't want to do that. If you can avoid this scenario, then it's a must, because having all of these points, it's just gonna be so much to spend time and money on. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to work on these points and reduce them, and then after I reduce them, I am going to go and create the ideal points, or my own version of the points rather than the magic wand feature. So I'm gonna do that, but just before I stop here, you can, once you're done, if you want to discard the support points, you can do that here. If you want to apply them, you can click apply. And when we generate the points, if you change this maybe to the maximum, which is 130, that makes the point of the support line or the support scaffolding, it's going to be much thicker, and therefore it would hold a lot more weight than a point that has this thickness. And that would depend on the complexity of the object. So this was the final results of the way I edited the points. If I go to edit with a bit of processing, I can go and see the points that I had. One thing that sometimes thing that's kind of misleading sometimes is that the result that I see right away, it's not really updated. I need to maybe just maybe sometimes I would add one point and then take it out just to make sure that it's showing me the final result, so I would be able to see the red areas. So now with the processing, so this is what I ended up printing actually, and you can see there are a lot of red areas, and sort of it's kind of a risk to print all of that, but because this object is very special, and it is I know that, you know, going through the I'm gonna discard the support here and discard. Going through the support system through the layers, I apologize for the noise that's coming from the fan, but every time I need to process things, I would, and also while recording, it just takes a lot of processing from the computer, so it's kind of noisy, sorry about that. So you can see here the structure, as I mentioned before, it's all building into itself, and it's not really segmented. The one thing that I paid a bit of attention is this plate here. I made sure that it's building up from where it was, rather than just popping out of the blue. And here at the end here, that was really nice to have. All the material here is kind of thick, and I'm printing with material called tuff, which gives a very nice texture to it, especially if I were to kind of have the light showing on it. So I'm gonna undo so I'll be able to see here the support. So again, going back to the edit mode, this is how much reddish areas I had, and this is kind of a risk that I took, but I made sure that I began here with a good base. And also discard, back to the advanced, I put the slope multiplier. These settings, like this setting here, would be affected by creating the when I apply everything together, but this would be something that's specifically the slope multiplier is going to be affected if I were to kind of randomly put the points rather than edit them. But in terms of the thickness, this would be something that that would be affected even if I were to edit them myself. But this, once I am on the edit mode, this is not gonna be working depending on what number. It's just gonna be inactive, because this is the number of how much tolerance or how much support you want the generation to be pushed. So if you want to go with the generate selected, this is something important. You want to put it maybe at the minimum, or you want to increase maybe to 3. That's going to be a crazy number. That's going to give you a lot of support, and you don't want to do that. So if you're going through the edit mode, this number does not matter. And in terms of the height, this would also be affected with the edit as well. So my setup where here I put this on 2 just so I would be able to bear more weight on this, just to make sure that it would hold nicely. but I don't think it's really a big deal. I just put it for insurance. And the final weight that I ended up with was 24 milliliter. So I'm gonna stop here. I am going to put on the magic. I'm just gonna wait. It's gonna take a little bit of processing. All right, so this was the final result after using the one touch print, and the result was it resulted in 47 milliliter. If I were to click again on the one touch print, it would give me a different result, and in some cases it would give me maybe more weight, or maybe in some cases it would give me some result with red areas where it's kind of risky or something. But I suppose to the result that I had, which is this, a lot easier to clean, a lot cheaper in time and money, and the volume is only 24 milliliter. So this is what I printed, and the result was very interesting, to me at least. I was happy with the result because it came out the way I was hoping it would be. This is the tip of that shape, and basically this is a part of the a spider that I'm printing. This is the abdomen of it, so it's really nice to have that coloration here, and kind of with light it's gonna look really cool. Some resolution shots. This area is very thin, and that's why the computer was showing them as red. But understanding the object that we're printing is very important, and I was sure that the object is going to hold the weight and building on itself. And I'm also going to show a video that I got for the object with some light. This is kind of the tip, nice. And what I like about this material is that it's also resistant, so you can kind of squash it a little bit and it would still take some beating. And depending on the object that you are modeling, this could be really useful for things that has a little bit of resistance. So I hope this video helped walking you through the whole process. From the beginning of getting the file into the Preform software, and I think it's an interesting software. It's the work around things kind of clear and intuitive. So I hope you guys enjoy your prints.